Hi, I'm Ron Morris for Ask the Author, and today we are in Wilmington, Delaware to talk with author S.T. Phillips about his new thriller, The Dark Side of Death. Thanks for being here today. And tell us, what name do you go by? Is it S.T. or some other name?
Well, Ron, first of all, I want to just say thank you so much for having me on your show today. It's quite an honor. But when I published the book, I thought, I'm going to finally get to use my name, Scott Phillips. Lo and behold, there's another author that's published by the name of Scott Phillips. So what I did was I used my initials, my first initial S, my middle initial T, and my last name, of course, Phillips.
Well, let's get into the book. Tell us what The Dark Side of Death's about. Give us some clues.
Well, The Dark Side of Death, as described by one of my characters in the book, is basically any death that's unnatural. You know, most of us kind of aspire to live to a ripe old age and die in our beds, but for a lot of people, unfortunately, that never happens. With my exposure to events that take place as a cop, as a police officer, you see people that have died as a result of shootings, stabbings, and all kinds of conditions when you get there. So basically, I always thought, you know, death is dark, all death is dark, but when you're a cop, you see people that have to die in ways that are not natural, and that is the dark side of death.
Well, with your background and your experience and paralleling that of your book, are these experiences a combination of an individual, groups, or possibly you?
Well, for Jack Dublin, it means something very different in the fact that in the story, in the book, Jack comes across a rape in progress, and he ends up shooting the rapist in self-defense because the rapist starts to attack him. And turns out the son that the kid that he kills is the son of a powerful United States senator who vows revenge. And even though Jack was exonerated of all the charges and found to be completely in the right, the senator vows that he's a rogue cop and that he's going to do anything he can to make sure that justice is served. And so therefore Jack is finding that the dark side of death is on both sides of the trigger because he shoots and kills this young man, and also now he has to face the wrath of the senator.
Well, with all this adventure and intrigue, how realistic is this book?
Well, unfortunately, Ron, anything and everything in this book can happen, and in fact, some of them have happened. The terrorists in this book are students that are studying right here in the United States at Georgetown University, and they're from Pakistan. And what they plot and plan to do is kill thousands of innocent people in the Caribbean, which involves a lot of Americans.
Does anyone die a dark side of death in your book?
Well, absolutely, somebody's going to die the dark side of death. You're going to have to read the book to find out who it is that dies that way.
Well, throughout your book, you've covered spans the globe. You mention places locally like Washington, D.C. You talk about St. Lucia, Montserrat, but you do talk about places in Delaware. Tell us a little bit about some of those places.
Well, I write about what I know and what I'm familiar with. I've been to St. Lucia, been to Montserrat, obviously been to Washington, D.C. But I was born and raised here in Delaware. I've been a police officer for years. And I wrote Jack Dublin so that he would have to come back to Delaware to investigate part of it would be part of his investigation to figure out why he got set up. And in so doing, he's going to be having Sunday or a meal at the charcoal pit. He's going to be at the Hotel de Pont. He's going to be at the Wilmington Drama League. And a lot of other sites in Delaware are going to be mentioned.
You have a police background, as does Jack Dublin. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and experience?
Well, currently I'm with the Newcastle County Sheriff's Office as a deputy. And I was, as I said earlier, on the Newcastle County Police. And basically, I've experienced just about, well, I shouldn't say that, because just when you think you've experienced everything, something new happens. But I've experienced a lot. and I hopefully have drawn on that to create a good, thrilling story with great characters, three-dimensional characters that readers are going to identify with, they're going to root for, and they're going to enjoy reading the book.
Well, I found your book quite exciting, and I suspect that as a writer, that may be your next career. Is that where you see yourself going?
Well, Ron, I hope so. It took me 4 years to write this book. Of course, if you ask my wife, it took me 10 years. But, when you have to write part-time and you can't totally focus each and every day on writing, I mean, I'm with the sheriff's office, and I also took on another job where I transport people back and forth to the airport with Delaware Express, because I enjoy being around people and I enjoy drawing on everybody's backgrounds. Everybody has a story to tell, and I use that certainly in my books. But it doesn't really lend much time to writing full-time, and I have probably about 7 books outlined that I'd like to really write.
Wonderful. Scott, before we close today, let me just ask you a question. With the parallels of your experience and your career and Jack Dublin's, could Jack Dublin be Scott Phillips?
Well, I'm Irish like Jack Dublin, but I'm not Jack Dublin, but I know who he is.
Well, great, Scott. Thank you very much today. And we appreciate your time. The Dark Side of Death is now available at Amazon. Do you have a website?
Yes, I do. The website is www.stphillips.net.
Thank you very much, Scott. And I highly recommend The Dark Side of Death. You can purchase it at Amazon.com or iBooks. Thank you. Scott, thank you very much.